Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Alice in Borderlands Season 2, Episodes 3 and 4. So, if we, of course, were to have the first two episodes just be this non-stop, action-packed thrill ride that eventually got exhausting, we go into Alice in Borderlands' third and fourth episode, and they had slowed the F down. Man, like it goes from this like nonstop thing to now like watching paint dry. It's weird. I'm like, what happened, season? I'm getting a little concerned. I'm hoping that the rest of the season isn't quite like this. And maybe they assumed that a lot of people would just kind of watch this show in bulk. So more than likely the way that this stuff just kind of plays out is to like be meant for that, and I didn't watch it in bulk because why? Because I could just watch these two episodes apiece and be fine with it. So we go into these episodes and we have Tata, who is to get a backstory that is to also to tie in to what is currently going on with Tata in that whole game with the Risu and Kiyama, which I thought that part was great. And then we also have Arisu, who is to possibly find out that what he is to go on and do here by thinking he can kind of continue to just beat this game over and over and over again and win it all. Like, is there an end game to all this? Is there a point where you have credits roll and you have yourself going all the way back to the start screen and you go back home? Arisu is to possibly realize that that answer might not be quite all like yes or no. And so we then go on to have Arisu, who's like, well, what's the point of even doing this then? Like, what's the point of even going on? So we also end up finding out where the heck Shuntaro went. The white-haired guy. Come to find out he's going to go into a game in this prison, and we have our characters who need to play this trust game with one person of many who cannot be trusted because he wants to go on and just kill everybody off. So, because the main game is that it's either the Jack is going to be killed or the Jack is going to kill everyone else off. So we have that game to me like really be similar to the Japanese movie like Battle Royale, or it also reminds me of a movie called Circle, where we have a bunch of people that awaken in this one room, and they then are to start pointing at people to start to kill them all off. Or there's sometimes where people lie in that movie, and then it's like, well, hey, you lied, you're gonna die next. Or there's certain people who had gone on to point out, like, well, hey, guys, let's kill that person off. And then that person ends up getting killed next because it's like, well, hey, you just killed a bunch of people. Like, you manipulated a bunch of people to kill off those people, so you're gonna die now. And then it's like, bam, you're dead. So that's how the movie Circle just kind of goes. Until it seems that there's just there's just the fewest people left. And at one point we have like one random guy who's like, how did he get here for so long? So we have Shintaro that is to hopefully go on and figure out who the Jack of Hearts is. And in all honesty, like there's a goofy bit of information that I had seemingly received here, because between two characters, I wasn't exactly sure who exactly was who. Because the guy who I assumed was Banda, we go on to have it seem that Banda is another guy. And I'm like, wait a minute, I thought he was Banda. Where is this story going? Because I had like certain information and most of it seemed right until I got to this part where it's like, okay, like, who's Banda then? I was like, what the heck? What's going on here? So I just got a little confused. So, with that said, let's just go on and, oh, wait. There's also one thing that I'm starting to realize, especially when we get into these episodes. They end up kind of recycling a scene from the first season and re-putting it here. And I was like, wait a minute, like, some of the other scenes might not have been obvious that they were in season one, but there was obviously this one scene that they used from, like, the pilot episode where they go on and talk about zombies, and I'm like, wait a minute, I remember that from the first episode. Like, before they go on and they get put into this new world, and I'm like, are they just copy and pasting from the first season to just kind of eat up more time here? What the fuck, show? What the fuck? So, that I did not like. I did not like them recycling footage, because if this episode's or if these episodes aren't even slowed down, to go on and kind of waste my time with season one footage is to annoy me. So I would state that these episodes are a solid okay. So we went from like the first two season or the second season, the first two episodes being epic to now being a solid okay. What kind of weird goofiness is this? So people are gonna be like, what? Like, how can you go on and have that drastic kind of grade? I'm sorry, but I'm just telling you how it all plays out. Like, to me, like, I felt that these two episodes were less thans. And also, like, they were just, like, to me, I was consistently clicking to see how long before the episode ends. I was like, man, these episodes are taking forever. Forever. Even though they have a certain runtime, I was just like, man, did I see like 4 episodes already? In 2? That's what it felt like. So, with that said, let's go and double fire this bad boy up. It's about that time, of course, going into spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil these episodes. So, we come to find Tata, who is in this car garage. And he's of course getting mentored by a guy named Kato, who is his boss, going on and kind of telling him that, hey man, like, make sure you secure these jacks, or otherwise, like, somebody can have an accident, and go on and kind of like, make sure you do this, make sure you tighten that, this isn't tight enough, yada yada. So we have Tada that is to talk to one of his coworkers, and Tata is like, man, like, Kato's really riding me, and like, I'm getting like really annoyed, and like, I don't know if I want to continue to keep doing this job. And so the guy that's sitting next to him, his coworker, is like, well, hey, like, Kato's only going on and like being on your case because you're messing things up. You're you're not doing a good enough job. So, like, I'm going to go on and I'm going to keep this job because I like this job, and, like, you can go on and do whatever you want. So, Kato, or Tada, goes in the following day and is with Kato. And again, Kato's like, well, hey, man, like, adjust this, take this off, all right. So, Kato goes on to tell Tata to, like, release this jack, and come to find out, the like, one of the kind of things holding up the car, the jack, uh is to slip, and we go on to have Kato getting crushed by this car, and come to find out he mangles up his hand. So we have Jack that goes on to talk to a guy who is to state that Kato had quit because his hand is now useless, and so we have Tada that's like, oh my god, like, I had probably cost this guy, like, his career, as well as also, like, just kind of not being that good at my job. Really could have almost killed this guy. So Tana walks off to then look at some of the employees, and some of the employees kind of under their breath is saying, like, well, hey, like, is Kato coming back? Like, I don't know. Like, if anything, like, Tada is a horrible worker, and that's why, like, this mishap happened. And Tada's like, oh, okay, all right. Like, well, I guess everybody freaking hates me. And we even have Tada, who was the guy that he spoke to at that place. We have that guy kind of turn his back on Tada. So now Tada is back at that base playing the Arisu Kiyama game, and we have 8 minutes left of this game. And we have Tata, who is just kind of looking down at his hand, just staring at it, trying to figure something out. So we go back to Usagi, who is to have gotten knocked out by Niragi, and he weirdly just goes on and is to, like, lift up this girl's shirt and licks her body and then licks her face. And I'm like, you could have gone on and done anything that would have been a million times better than that. And you decide to just lick this girl's body, it seems. And I ask why. We have a Risu that is to kind of break this up with Naragi, and Arisu just starts punching him. And should have just punched him to death. It would have been great. But, like, they need the points, technically. So we have Arisu that is asked, like, well, hey, man, like, why are you doing that? And Naragi is just like, well, hey, man, like, if we're gonna die soon anyways, like, I might as well, like, get my jollies off, like, because I know that you probably did too at one point, right? And Risu is just like, ugh, like, so we have Kiyama that's like, you know what, there's only 8 minutes left, and we have Maki and Goken and Uta that are just like, yeah, like, they're just kind of wandering around. They're like, yeah, like, they kind of have just their hands in the pockets, just kind of do. So Kiyama's like, you know what, I'm just gonna take a walk. I'm gonna peel out. Like, this is kind of uneventful. All these guys just gonna wait to die then? Because that seems to be the plan. So we see Hikuri that is just sitting down somewhere, and she's like, you know what? Like, I'm just waiting to die. 8 minutes is an eternity. It's far too long. It's kind of like in a football game where you would realize that there's no way that a team can come back because there's only like 10 minutes left. And then you all of a sudden see that the team is throwing all these like Hail Mary passes and all these crazy plays. And then you're like, oh my God, there's a chance. And then boom, they surprisingly come back. And it's like, how was this possible? Like, this seems irrational to make this massive comeback, but somehow they do. And win the game. It's surprising. So we have Arisu that is to make his way to meet up with Kiyama, and after like Arisu is kind of checking on Yuzahya. So we all of a sudden have them both realize that something had both told them, like a little birdie or something, had told them to both show up here at the same time. Like it was fated. Maybe it was a script. Maybe a script told them to meet there, or a manga at some point told them to meet there at that spot. So we go and have Kiyama, and we have Risu, who has succumbed to this like profound realization of a number of things, where Kiyama is talking about the water, and we have a Risu who is mentioning, it's like, well, you know what, you were right before, talking about you being a real leader of a team, and this and that. So we go on to have Arisu, who is to talk to Kiyama, and he's like, you know what, like, all I want from you, Kiyama, before I die, is for one last handshake. And Kiyama's like, well, you know, if we handshake, then we're gonna have to battle, and you're probably gonna lose. And Arisu's like, yeah, I get it, but like, you know what, like, I really just wanted to show real like gratitude to you, like, and just want to thank you, and the only way that I can think to do that is to shake your hand. So Kiyama's just like, all right, like, seems like this kid has matured. Seems like this kid has learned a thing or two. So we also are to find out that Arisu, before he was to go on and leave to find Kiyama and go into that whole one last handshake thing, we have Arisu that finds Tata, and he's slamming his hand into this storage container. And we're like, what the is going on with this kid? So we have Arisu that is talking to Tata. It's like, what are you doing? Like, are you insane? And we come to find out from what Tata had learned in the past, how that guy had kind of ruined his life via him, like, kind of having that Jack kind of slip and fall. And we had Tata come to this realization that no one said anything about taking the wristband off. So we have Tata who has to come up with a way for his wristband to come off. And so that means he has to break his hand so badly that the wristband will come off. So Tata is desperately demanding that Arisu smash his hand so badly that he can get the wristband off. So that way Tata can give his wristband to Arisu so they can win, and so the rest of the team can kind of like figure this out and beat him. So Arisu goes on and slams Tatu's hand like he asks. And we all of a sudden start to realize after Arisu is to kind of tie Tata's hand to kind of hopefully stop the blood from flowing so easily. Because man is Tata bleeding. We have Arisu that's like, oh, okay, like let's get this wristband and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna meet up with Kayuma or Kiyama, my bad. So I'm gonna be doing that a lot. So if I ill pronounce anybody's name, it could just be me wanting to apologize and say, yeah, that's gonna happen a lot. So we go on to now have Arisu and Kiyama that shake hands, and we all of a sudden realize that Kiyama is to lose and Arisu is to win, and Kiyama's like, what the heck? How is that possible? And Arisu is to have taken the wristband from out of his pocket, and Kiyama's like, wow, you were really messed up. Like, I did not think that you would pull that kind of maneuver off to frickin' win. But thinking about it though, Kiyama's like, well, like Shitara, like he gave up his life for like this team, and we have Kiyama that's really thinking of Shitara right now, and how Shitara was to state that if we don't win after this, that Shitara's gonna like kind of haunt me in the afterlife. And so Shitara has now died in vain, and Kiyama is to also realize that he let his friends down also. So we have Maki, we have Goken, and we have Uta, and they all start to realize that they have now lost this game. And so we have Goken that's stated is like, well, Kiyama let his guard down, and we have Uta that mentions they would not have made it without Kiyama, and so like, hey, like don't be too bad on him. And so we have the guys who are sitting and say, well, hey man, like we're just gonna have a lot of fun in the afterlife then if we die here. So we're just gonna go on and just kind of do the same thing that we did when we were here in heaven, maybe, or wherever we end up next. So these people are gone on to already accept their deaths, and they're fine with it because it's like, man, like this is a really grueling battle anyways. So we have Arisu that is to ask Kiyama, it's like, well, hey, like, do we go back? Because when really looking at it, we had Kiyama that had gone on to play this game for so long that he eventually became a game master himself, but then it turned around to have him just become a citizen, just like Risu. And so we really just have Arisu who's like, well, like, so is there a way out, or is it just like a never ending story here? And we have Kiyama that's like, well, like, if you want to think of it that way, of it being just this kind of never ending thing, then, like, go ahead and just think of it that way. And Arisu is like, well, wait a minute. Like, so that means that, like, we're never getting out of here. Like, everything that we're ever going to do is just pointless, and we're just going to die here. And Arisu is to state, it's like, well, like, I don't want you to die because I want us to be friends. And Kiyama is to tell Arisu, it's like, well, we were friends the whole time, so don't worry about it. So we have Kiyama that kind of wants to go out in his own way. So we have Kiyama, and we have Maki, Uta, Goken, and they all die simultaneously with the blast. And then we go on to find that the King of Clubs blimp ends up exploding and crashing also into this water. So we have Hikari that goes on to find Usagi and tells her that they had won. And Usagi, or Uzaha, I'm gonna go with Usagi. She is to wake up and like, really? We won? Great! Like, as if it matters anyways, because we're just gonna keep on having to do these games anyways. So we have Arisu that runs back to Tata and is telling him, like, hey man, we won! Like, we did it! And we had Tata that was even to go on and mention that when Arisu had complimented Tata before, like, he felt great about it. And so we go and have Tata, who ends up bleeding out. And slowly but surely starting to kind of like lose a step. And so we have Tata that bleeds out, and so they go on, and after he dies, they bury him. And so we have Niragi that is to like go on and look at this guy's burial. He's like, well, you know, I'm kind of ticked that I'm still alive, but I'm also grateful. Because this guy is going through so much pain right now. He's just blood all the time. But yeah, so we have Niragi that's like, well, you know what, like I wanted to die my own way, but it feels like someone was to kind of not give me that option. So like we'll see if Niragi ends up becoming an alliance with Arisu, or is to kind of be at opposites, or maybe he kind of plays his own fiddle or flute or whatever. So let's go into this next part here. So we have the TEIO prison. I don't even know how to pronounce that, so I'm just stating it from the thing of which that it showed on screen. So we go on to have Shuntaro that makes his way into this prison, and we get this card that states, put this collar on, go upstairs to the center guard room. And I guess wait, because that's usually the thing that it states somewhere. So we have Shintaro go on to meet up with a certain cluster of people, and we have a guy named Matsushita, which I ended up getting so confused with another character named Banda. And I was like, what the heck? Because they end up saying that Matsushita at some point could have been Banda, the serial killer. And I'm like, well, clearly it states in my notes here that this is Matsushita. What the fuck? So, anyways, we go on and find out that this game is to be called Solitary Confinement. And it comes down to guessing the card's suit that is to be in the back of their neck. You cannot go on and have any reflective surfaces or anything like that go on and try to figure out what this card is. Someone has to, or card suit is in the back of your neck. Someone has to go on and tell you what it is. So, and come to find out, the level of this game is Jack of Hearts, the difficulty. So, this game all comes down to trust. And there, of course, is to be one person that is to really want to kill everyone off, because everyone is going to try to kill the Jack of Hearts. So, we have this game built on trust. The Jack of Hearts dies, and so everyone is going to need to lie to Jack, hoping that that person is going to die, and then when they do, they can leave this game. But we also state that, like, the longer that these people stay in this prison, the longer that they can just kind of wait things out and play this game out however they want to. So we go on to figure out that maybe no one could be trustworthy here. It's a bunch of, like, they go back and forth with the whole trust and the whole bunch of words and lingo and whatever through a lot of this. So my apologies for me kind of restating certain things. But we have Urumi, the girl who has kind of like the blue dress. She kind of has these kind of like buns in her hair, these like two buns. Weirdly enough, in the manga, it seems that she's wearing a hoodie, and that hoodie has kind of like ears on it, like kind of cat ears or something. And like, I was trying to figure out who Urume was, because I was kind of looking through the IMDb, and like half of the cast was like gone. So I'm like, oh, okay, great. Like, I have to kind of retroactively through the episode find out who people are as they go on and die. Luckily, they stated names of people when they died of who they were. Man, I would just like a cast list in this show where it's just kind of like, when you would introduce people, like, rattle off their names somewhere. Or state who they are, because that would be great also. Or just be like, hey man, let's introduce ourselves. And man, would that just be freaking easy for me. So, Urumi is to decide to put together a team of people to state, hey, like, let's all, like, trust one another. And, like, you tell me what your thing is, I'll tell you what my thing is. and will keep that trust. And so it's like, okay, that sounds pretty nice. We have Shuntaro that is to kind of state it's like, well, hey, keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer, because we have Shintaro that is to consistently be like trying to figure out like who could be the liar and who could be the person who's telling the truth. So we have Shintaro that teams up with Oki or Okai. I'm gonna go with Okai. That sounds better. So we go on to have Shintaro, who is a state. It's like, well, who could be trustworthy here? Like, Shintaro is to immediately know what Yaba and Katoko were kind of doing in this cell before they started this game, and they were just banging it out in the cell. They were going at it. Not the other banging like we end up seeing through the rest of this story with Shintaro's kind of game here. That's a different kind of bang that you hear in the cells. So we go and have Banda, who I'm assuming is Banda, the kid with this kind of like almost like emo kind of hair, where it feels like he's going to be kind of like flipping it back consistently in this show, but he doesn't. So Banda goes on and teams up with Matsushita, and man, some of these names are just really hard to pronounce. Plus, also, I could probably go on and state that I should probably just say the first name, but like there's certain things where it's like, well, I think I can pronounce this one easier than other things. So we have Matsushita that is talking to Banda as this guy's like, well, hey man, how about we partner up? And we have Matsushita that is to state, because of Banda's haircut, that this guy is to kind of be a number of things, but the main thing is that he's pathetic and small. So Matsushita is like, well, yeah, I definitely want to go on and partner up with this guy, because kind of the way that I'm kind of dissecting this guy is if I'm kind of Sherlock Holmesing who this guy is, just based off of his haircut. Like, I think I want to go on and kind of be with this guy because he's going to be a weakling compared to me. So, we all of a sudden have Shuntaro that is looking at Urume's team tell everybody the answers of what they are to have as far as card suitors in the back of their necks. So we go on to have Shuntaro that is a state that at some point soon the Jack will start to kill people to kind of like thin out the herd a little bit. But also we have Shuntaro that is like, well, hey, like, really, like, we have all the time in the world, though. So if people could just go on and just start trusting people, then, like, we can just continue on to just endlessly live here and have all this food that is just kind of in this prison, and they should be, like, there for a good chunk of time. But so we have Shintaro and the rest of the group that all comes in, and we have a guy named Seto. Seto is all of a sudden getting beaten up by Genki, and Genki is to want to know what is on the back of his neck. And we have Matsushita. Man, these names. Matsushita is going on and telling Seto to tell him he has a club even though he doesn't, so that way he'll die. He whispered sweet nothings into Seto's ear, and Seto was like, okay, you have a club. And Genki's like, well, good, maybe you could have told me a little bit quicker next time around. So, by the time that they have to go on into all their rooms to say what the back of their neck states, we had Genki that dies from a false stating because he states the word club and it's not a club. So we next have Seto, who killed Genki. So all of a sudden, the rest of the people don't go on and trust Seto. It's like, well, hey, like, that guy obviously told them club and it wasn't the truth, so, like, we should just kill that guy. But Seto, weirdly, is to be tied into Urume's team, because Urume is to tell Seto, it's like, well, hey, like, how about you join our team? And then she just kills him off by going on and lying to him and state that his neck was a spade when it really was a heart. So we then have Seto that dies, and that's of course when we get Shuntaro that's like, well, hey, like, there is no time limit here, but why are people consistently dying still? So we have Yaba, and we have Katoko, and they're kind of walking together, and we find out that Misa, Miesa, Maisa, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. She ends up dead because, of course, she was with the Urumi group, and they had decided to kind of weed her down, and were like, yeah, she's gonna die next. So we have Banda, and we also have Matsushita that are kind of in their own kind of hallway also, just kind of walking by. So we have Okai that is stating to Shintaro that excuse me, that it seems that people are starting to trick each other, and Shintaro's like, well, are you surprised? The next thing that we end up seeing is two people die. Two random people. They don't state who their name is. So we go and have a guy named Moto Haiko. And Moto Haiko ends up vomiting because of the stress of this game. And so Urume is like, we're gonna kill that guy. So just tell him that his neck is to have a diamond in it. Or is it that he has a diamond and someone tells him, like, either way, they go on to tell him a lie because they want to kill him off. But then we weirdly have Moto Haiko, who also wants Urume dead for how many times that she's gone on and kind of thinned out so many people, so there's no one to trust between both Urume and Moto Haiko. And so we have the two people that are on the opposite ends of both Urume, and Moto Haiko, we have them like kind of looking at one another like, let's kill both of them off. And the girl's like, okay. But then eventually they go on and they don't trust one another either. So, like, everybody just freaking dies. It's crazy. So, to die. So, we have. Let me pause here for a second. Alright. So, we have Yaba that is to mention how the Jack of Hearts trap, it seems, had gone on to make a lot of people's trust break. And so we go on and have Yaba, who is stating this to his lover, Katoko, and he goes on and states that it's like, well, yeah, but we don't have that problem now, do we? And Kotoko's like, well, of course not. Of course we don't have a trust problem. So we go on to have Shuntaro that is talking to Okai. And Okai is talking about, like, man, like, how could people, like, be this way and this and that. And we all of a sudden have Shuntaro that's like, man, you've led a very charmed life. Uh, but Shintaro is a state for Okai. It's like, well, hey man, we can still win this. Like, we can still do this. But really, Shintaro just needs this guy so Shintaro can live. And so we have them going back to their rooms to tell what cards they are, what card suitors they are to have in the back of their necks. And Okai is the state that he doesn't want to do this anymore. So he dies because he didn't state what card he was. So Shuntaro is to realize that he's like, oh man, like, I lost my partner. So he and 4 other people are left. And he's like, oh crap. That's telling me that I'm going to probably die pretty soon. So, because we've really dwindled down the numbers here. So, we have Shintaro that's trying to get cozy with some of the people that are left. So, we have Shuntaro that is talking to Banda, and Shuntaro is to go into this place that have all these cookies, and when Banda is to kind of grab this certain pack, Shintaro is like, well, hey, like, these cookies are way better. Like, I don't know what you're eating, but, like, hey, these are way better. And so we all of a sudden have Shintaro that's to tell Banda a story about this serial killer named Banda. And he's assuming that Banda is to be Banda's partner that he's with. And it's like, well, hey, you shouldn't go on. You shouldn't trust him because he's wanting to kill everybody. So we go on to have Banda, who meets up with his team member, and which is a guy that I've butchered the name with, Matsushita. I'm gonna call him Matt. Good God, because we're almost done here. So we go on to have Matsushita talking to Banda. It's like, well, hey man, like, we're gonna make Shuntaro the Jack, whether he is or not. Like, we're gonna make him that guy. And so when Banda tells Shuntaro what is to be the card suitor at the back of his neck, Shuntaro can't believe him. So we have Yaba going and talking to his woman, Kotako, and he goes on and states that he's kind of very concerned with Banda, and he also had picked up that Matsushita. Somehow I figured out how to pronounce that without looking at the name, because man, Matsushita went on to whisper to Seto before, and Yaba picked up on that. It's like, well, yeah, like either one of these people can't be trusted. They're killers either way. So we go on to have Shuntaro that is to meet with Kotako with all the cookies and all the food. So we have Shuntaro that tells this woman that he finds her to be a trustworthy person, and he asks, like, well, if you could just tell me the symbol that's on the back of my neck, like, I would appreciate it. And she also states that Yaba is some kind of con man to not trust him. It's like, well, like, so that way you can kind of turn on him, and Shuntaro and Kotako will eventually be banging somewhere in some cell. I don't really believe that story. So we have Yaba that confronts Banda, and we go on to have them like talking, and so Yaba's like, well, hey, are you the Jack or not? Come on. Like tell me the truth. It's like it's either you are or your friend is, because both of you are freaking shady as F. So we go on to have Shuntaro that is to realize that Banda had said club. So Shuntaro is like, well, hey, is it a club? Is it not a club? Can I trust what Banda told me? So Kuntaro is to have talked to Yaba, and she is to go on and lie to Yaba, stating that his neck is not be what it is. And I'm like, oh my god, Yaba's gonna die next. And like they were banging in the cell together. So Kotako is to kind of be able to get her back of her neck was to be stated correctly. And so Shuntaro is to realize, well, hey, considering I can't now trust either Banda's answer, and I can't go on and trust that even like Kotako was to even give me an answer. So Shintaro is like, well, it has to be a diamond or it has to be something else. So Shintaro is like, okay, I'll just trust my gut. And it coincidentally ends up being a diamond. So we all of a sudden have this explosion sound, and Banda ends up coming out of his room, and we have him realize he's like, oh my god, I won. Like, nobody else is coming out of the room, so obviously I won. And we then go on to have Shuntaro that's like, I knew you were the Jack of Hearts. Because this guy was cackling and everything, and it's like, yeah, like, you knew that you would probably win this game. So, we go on to find out that Kotako was to have died. Even though she was given the right information, she died anyways. So, we have Yaba, who is to figure out that Banda was a Jack of Hearts, because when Yaba was to give Kotako the right bit of information, it then had to go on and had to be like a certain person. So we come to find out that Kotako had been working with Banda the whole time, and Shintaro had figured this out by watching them assort these snacks. So both Kotako and Banda were kind of assorting these snacks in a certain way to have Kotako figure out, like, okay, I have a spade now, or okay, I have this now. And so, like, they were sorting these snacks on purpose to have to give them both answers without anybody noticing. So it's like, oh, okay, so they must have just picked like the worst kind of like snack to go on and kind of do this whole thing. So we go on and further have Matsushita that had teamed up with Yaba, and they had teamed up together. And so we had Matsushita that was asking Yaba, it's like, well, hey, like, why play these games? And like, why be in this country? We have Matsushita that mentions how like beautiful it is, and Yaba is to state, it's like, well, like, I play all these games because I feel like this is a place to eventually be conquered. And so we really start to have Yaba and Matsushita that realize that it's like, well, you know what, like, we both here could be really just trustworthy partners, and like, if we both kind of realize that like this would benefit the both of us, then like we can go on and just kind of win. So win everything. So we go on and have the characters who realize that the Jack of Hearts was to be Banda, and they were keeping him alive for information. So we have Yaba and Matsushita that were going on to torture Banda for information, and we had the Jack of Hearts that goes on to state the wrong answer, even though both Yaba and Matsushita were to give him the right answer of what was in the back of his neck, because this guy wanted to die because he didn't want to get tortured. So we have Shuntaro that leaves the prison, and the Jack of Hearts blimp explodes, and so we end up finding out that the game is over. So we then are back with Arisu. So Arisu is going on and replaying Tata's death. And so we have uh, Hikari that is touching up Usagi's wound on her head. So Arisu is to break it down to the other girls that we may never leave. And Kiyama was to have been here for so long that at some point they were to have come up with their own games. So I was like, okay, that's really kind of interesting. Like the people could be here so long that they just become game masters themselves. And so it also is telling for Arisu that there might not be like their world left. That maybe like this world has just been all consumed and the real Earth that they knew is all but dead. We don't know. So we have Hikari that is to leave from Arisu and Usagi because I really just think that she probably leaves because she's like, man, you guys are really like damping my style. Like you guys are really just like buzz killing everything for me. And so Hikari's like, dude, I need some time away. I'm gonna start looking for an in Chishiyama or Chishiya Chishiya and hope that she's gonna go on and find these people. So we have a Risu who's getting flashbacks from the pilot episode of that whole zombie talk, and we end up having Chota or no Chota and Karube who are talking to Risu about like, well, like, do you think a job is really the end of the world? Like, can't you just go on and talk to your dad and and have him just kind of help you find a job and so on and so forth? And so Risu is just kind of like, well, yeah, like maybe it is time for me to go on and just really like adapt and so on and so forth. So we have Usage or Usagi that goes on to find some mugwort, some leaves to go on and have a salad. And so Usagi is telling Arisu, it's like, well, hey, you should probably go on and do some hunting, so that way we can kind of get some meat. Because I guess they couldn't go on to the local stores for so often and just kind of find this product. Eventually, it'll just kind of thin out. So they go hunting for rabbits. And as they are to try to go on and grab at these rabbits, we have Arisu and Usagi that find this camp of a bunch of people that are all dead. I'm assuming the King of Spades had come through and just cleaned house. So we all of a sudden have Arisu that is to find a guy named Kaito. And so Kaito is to tell Arisu, it's like, well, hey, like, go and watch the film that's in there in this RV. So both Arisu and Usagi go into this RV to realize that this guy is to like develop film, like develop photos, and also is to kind of do this kind of old-fashioned wind-up film. So we end up seeing a snippet of this film before, but now we're seeing it again. and I didn't quite clearly understand what that little snippet meant before. But so now we have this film where this guy is documenting his time here in this place, and so we come to find out the further goes in this film, we have Anne, who is to mention that time is different here than the Earth they know. That it seems that a bunch of like certain trees are growing faster, or that certain things are kind of like evolving differently. So, or changing in a drastically different way. So, we go on to find that this guy was to find a community. And we all of a sudden have a woman who is to see this thing called fireworks. And somehow this girl had a hole drilled into her head. So she can see things that other people couldn't. And so by the time that she starts saying more about this, we all of a sudden have the King of Spades that shows up and starts killing and mowing down everybody. So, funny enough, life reflects art, as we both, in film as well as in Risu and Usagi's case, are to find the King of Spades coming after them. So, we have Arisu and Usagi that run to eventually find that Arisu is kind of be off by his lonesome, and it seems that he ends up getting like close to this unusual trap where it seems that the King of Spades might have gotten gunned down. We're not quite sure yet. And we have Arisu who gets knocked out. So when Arisu awakens, he's met by Haya. And Haya is to state that the person that she is with knows Arisu by name. And so it's like, okay, so this must be someone from Arisu's past. And so Haya's to state, it's like, well, yeah, like the person that I'm with, he gets kind of ticked off. And so, like, you're probably the cause of him being ticked off. So Arisu's like, great, I can't wait to meet him. So we have Arisu, after talking to Haya, makes his way to go on and find Aguni, who I believe was the guy from the first season who is to try to go on and like gun down Hatter. And I was like, I thought that this guy was dead. But I guess not. So that's the way that they end this fourth episode, and we're gonna kind of pick up in the following episodes. I'm assuming with Agune and Arisu, and having them at possibly some point, like they might become partners, or maybe they might not become partners. I'm not quite sure. So we'll figure that out when we get into the following episode. But either way, I'm going to say goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.